greasing this upper mandrel bearing, and you can see in half of it here, I haven't put any grease in it yet. It's pretty dry. I have this deck apart doing some work on it. I thought while I was in it I'd go ahead and put some grease in. I've already greased half of it before I started making the video, but I just wanted to show. Just take your grease gun with a grease needle in it, put quite a bit in there. I've already greased between all the other bearings. And then here's my little plastic, what they call a silt bearing. You can just pop that thing out of there without damaging it. Just because they say silt bearings, if they have these plastic caps in them, you can pop them right out, put some more grease in it, and that bearing will last a long time. It's brand new. I've already popped the cap off of it. This is a brand new bearing, and that's how much grease is in it. You can barely see any grease in there. And they wonder why these things only last a couple hundred hours at the most. And I just pulled this thing out of the bag. It's never been used before. Even when I buy a new bearing, I like to pop the caps off and grease them. Very easy to put them back together. While I have this off, I'm going to go ahead and shoot some grease in there so it's ready whenever I go to use it.
There's always some knucklehead out there making a comment about not removing the sill bearing caps or using grease needles, but if you want to run your deck on borrowed time and grenade a spindle, go ahead.
Here's one of the few bearings that I've purchased new that actually had a lot of grease in it, brand new. These are F&D bearings. You get them on Amazon or eBay fairly cheap. I usually buy them in the brick of at least 10 bearings. These fit the Murray deck top spindle position, and the part number on there. And those come full of grease. That's how they should look. Those will last a long time. This is the spindle that this bearing here fits in. That part number I already showed you. This one here says 6203 RS, 6203 2RS, same bearing. I've already checked, make sure they fit. It's got a little bit smaller bearing in the bottom shaft hole. But that's a Murray riding lawnmower deck mandrel. Has a grease zerk on it. Most of the Murrays that I've seen do. This is one of the shorter, stubbier spindles. Some of them are a little bit taller, about like that. Another couple inches on there.
I pulled this clip off of one of my other videos to show how to grease the sealed bearings and the idler and tensioner pulleys with a grease needle.
You can also grease the bearing in that pulley right there and take a scribe and get in there and move that seal to the side just enough to where you can get a grease needle in. And this grease needle here sticks in the end of a grease gun, and these are great. I grease all kinds of bearings with these and save having to buy pulleys when the bearings are still moving. They just need some grease in them. There's not really any other way to grease them. Here's the grease injector needle box and part number. You can pick these up at just about any auto parts store for around $5 to $7, and they'll usually last me about a year before I break one. I put it in this little gun here so I could leave that grease needle in it. If you try to pull the grease needle out of the tip there, they tend to break, so I just dedicate this one grease gun for the grease needle. That way I've always got one ready to go.
For mandrels with grease zerks on them, you just need to pump the housings full of grease. You don't need to take them apart to grease them.
If you can see, there's a grease zerk on this side, and then I've got this one over here turned to the outside, but I like to be able to get my hand in there and keep a good firm connection on that grease gun so I'm not wasting grease. But I've already pumped these up. They took about 20 to 25 pumps of grease to get grease to come out the bottom of the spindle.
Thanks for watching. If you found any of this information useful, please like and subscribe to my channel. More is on the way.